The following is a list of Moors who have been kidnapped and are being held for a demand of income. The demand of income is being made against the family as well as through fraudulent submissions of documents alleging that they are caring for the people in some sort of long-term care fashion. These Moors have been kidnapped literally off the street by employees of various corporations that are guised as counties, cities, towns, township, boroughs. These names that we have all been mentally conditioned to believe are government are not. They are exactly what they say they are. They are municipal corporations, and as such, they, if you do the research, you will find that they are foreign corporations on American soil. Therefore, they do not have standing nor jurisdiction to make a demand of income or even bring a claim against the aboriginal, indigenous people, or any people on American soil, this making their actions criminal. However, as Moors, we must bring these crimes to the forefront via civil complaints against these unalienable constitutional treaty-secured rights of the people, aboriginal, indigenous Moors of this land. If the municipal corporation has been provided, then we reference that along with the union state. If we don't have the municipal corporation where the employee works that actually did the kidnapping, then we just reference the union state that is bound and obligated to protect the people from foreign and domestic invasion. This list comprises Moors who have been kidnapped and are being held hostage by employees of various corporations on American soil, which is a violation of the American Constitution 1791, and it is a treaty violation, being that we are talking about Moorish Americans, aboriginal, indigenous to this land, who have been kidnapped by employees of foreign corporation on American soil. This making this an international issue because you have two nations with one nation warring against another. Therefore, this is an international issue. If you have a family member near or far within your immediate family or one of the family that you know and you would like them added to this list, please send an email to mhhseyeswideopen@gmail.com. In the subject line, put Kidnap Moor, and please provide us with their free national appellation, the municipal corporation that the employee is operating through that kidnapped them, along with the union state that this corporation is in purview to. We start off with our sister, Abka Ray Bay, kidnapped through a joint venture between Memphis and Shelby Corporation under the purview of Tennessee, Daoud Il under the purview of Arkansas, Amir Muslimin Il, Kusu Ra Kush Bay under the purview of Missouri, Asar Patah Amen Ra Bay under the purview of Ohio, Jeremy Paler Il, Terry Thorne Bay, J. McCall Brooks Bay, Joseph Kanaday Il, Kush Amir Bunch Il, Emmanuel Billings Bay, Yassin Khalik Alamin Il, Michael Curry Bay, all under the purview of North Carolina, Noble Crisco Il under the purview of New Jersey, Messiah Aziz Il and Crystal Il, both kidnapped through a joint venture between Mercer, Freehold, and Trenton Corporation under the purview of New Jersey. Still waiting on an update regarding baby Patricia, or the baby of Patricia Bay, kidnapped by the Atlantic Corporation under the purview of New Jersey. Eldridge Tyrone Fisher Ill and Marty Sivion Ill under the purview of Indiana, Solomon Ill Bay and Mumi Abu Bay under the purview of Texas, William Barrett Ill under the purview of Virginia, Che Ray Bay under the purview of West Virginia, Thomas Lee Bay under the purview of California, Victor Eduardo Avalle Juarez Ill, kidnapped by Harlem Corporation under the purview of Georgia, Natural Atohudi Ill, kidnapped by Benner Corporation under the purview of Pennsylvania, Brian George Mills Bay, kidnapped by Blades Corporation under the purview of Florida, Judah Ill and Anwar Ill, kidnapped by Philadelphia Corporation under the purview of Pennsylvania, Ramor Ill, Amada Ill, both kidnapped by Chester Corporation under the purview of Pennsylvania, Iman Ill, kidnapped by Lynchburg Corporation under the purview of Virginia, and Khalid Albert Ill, kidnapped by Las Vegas Corporation under the purview of Nevada. Thank you very much.
All right, Islam, and welcome to MHHS, Eyes Wide Open. This is your host, Annie Edel, along with my co-host, Ms. Rainy Hollis L.
Peace and the E, peace Moors worldwide. Just from the beginning, I wanted to say, Cujo want everybody to know that all is well. He's still in his travels, and he'll be back soon. And that Sons of Allah for June 2017 be pushed back to June 22nd, based off of the fact Cujo is traveling right now. Say that from the beginning. So much, gratitude. Yeah.
All right, so what that means is this Thursday will not be Sons of Allah. It will be next Thursday, the 22nd.
Yes.
So make sure and look out for that. All right, so let's see. I think we also have Ross Mariah Bay.
Islam, peace and love to all.
All right, peace and love. Before we get started, I just want to let everyone know the chat room is open. So you can go there and comment as you normally do. Want to send a shout out to the family listening over in Great Britain, near the corporate construct known as Great Britain, also France, South Africa, the Netherlands, Islam, Brother Palestine, Bangladesh, the Philippines, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, Barbados, Haiti, Puerto Rico, the construct known as Mexico, Venezuela, Brazil, and Panama, and to family we have yet to connect with. Peace and love, and thank you so much for listening. Big shout out to our callers. Thank you so much for calling in, filling the phone lines before the broadcast even begins. Thank you so much for joining, participating, lending the energy. Thank you so much for that. We do appreciate that. All right, so this week's broadcast, before I get into that, we will be at the National Theater tomorrow for class. So that's the second Wednesday, and we will, I'm not sure, is Abdullah doing next week?
Yeah, but we'll be there this week. You'll be doing class this week.
All right, so we will be there this Wednesday, that's tomorrow, So, and Abdullah Bey will be there next Wednesday. So the doors open at 6:30. Class begins at 7:30. So we shall see you tomorrow if you are in the area near the Harlem Corporation as well as the National Theater. Let's see. So this week's broadcast is entitled. Actually, this week's broadcast is actually as a result of a conversation Roz and I had, and we were talking about, what's going on, what happened in like areas like Rwanda, Congo, India, even like places like Haiti. What happened when modern Europeans left? What happened with the Moors, and what's going to happen here? So it just so happens that I saw this article, happened to see this article today, that was kind of sort of in line with that conversation. So I said, this would be a good conversation to have because it's something we need to begin thinking about. What will you do when the modern Europeans leave? Every day, more is unveiled, showing that the hold that modern Europeans have had for so long on the aboriginal indigenous people of the land, Moors, coming to an end. Have we thought about how we will live our lives when that day comes? Will we truly go back to the mindset of our ancestors, or will we jockey for the position to continue the slave treatment started by our cousins and taken over by modern Europeans? Are you prepared? So I want to read this brief discussion, and the discussion is entitled Jim Rogers, The Worst Crash in Our Lifetime is Coming. It's dated June 9, 2017, and it was written by Josh Frank and Carrie Chan. And it was written on Business Insider, I believe it is. And it reads as follows. This is just a vexation, and I want to just put it out there because it kind of sort of goes in harmony with what we discussed and the signs and symbols that have been unveiled, if we've been paying attention. So we really got to ask the question, what are we going to do? Legendary investor Jim Rogers sat down with Business Insider CEO Henry Blodgett on this week's episode of The Bottom Line. Rogers predicts a market crash in the next few years, one that he says will rival Dean in his lifetime. Following is a transcript of the video. Blodgett says, one of the things I've always admired about you as an investor is that you don't talk about what should be. You figure out what is going to be, and then you do that. So what is going to be with respect to the stock market? What's going to happen? Rogers replied, I learned very early in my investing career. I better not invest in what I want. I better invest in what's happening in the world. Otherwise, I'll be broke, dead broke. Well, what's going to happen is it's going to continue. Some stocks in America are turning into a bubble. The bubble's going to come. Then it's going to collapse, and you should be very worried. But, Henry, this is good for you because someone has to report it, so you have job security. You're a lucky soul. Logic says, well, yes, TV ratings do seem to go up during crashes, but then they completely disappear when everyone is obliterated. So no one is hoping for that. So when is this going to happen? Rogers replied, later this year or next. Blodgett replied, later this year or next, question mark. Rogers, yeah, write it down. Blodgett replied, and what will trigger it? Rogers replied, well, it's interesting because these things always start where we're not looking. In 2007, Iceland went broke. People said, Iceland? Is that a country? They have a market? And then Iceland went broke. And then Bear Stearns went broke, and Lehman Brothers went viral like that. Always happens when we're not looking. I don't know. It could be an American pension plan that goes broke, and many of them are broke, as you know. It could be some country we're not watching. It could be all sorts of things. It could be war. Unlikely it could be war, but it's going to be something. When you're watching Business Insider and you see, quote, that's so interesting. I didn't know that company could go broke, end quote, it goes broke. Send me an email and then I'll start watching. Blodgett, and how big a crash could we be looking at? Roger, it's going to be the worst in your lifetime. Blodgett, once in my lifetime. Roger says, it's going to be the biggest in my lifetime, and I'm older than you. No, it's going to be serious stuff. We've had financial problems in America. Let's use America. Every 4 to 7 years since the beginning of the Republic. Well, it's been over 8 since the last one. This is the longest and second longest in recorded history, so it's coming. And the next time it comes, you know, in 2008, we had a problem because of debt. Henry, the debt now, that debt is nothing compared to what's happening now. In 2008, the Chinese had a lot of money saved for a rainy day, started raining. They started spending the money. Now even the Chinese have debt, and the debt is much higher. The Federal Reserve, Central Bank in America, balance sheet is up over 5 times since 2008. It's going to be the worst in your lifetime, my lifetime, to be worried. Blodgett, I am worried. Roger, good. Blodgett, can anyone rescue us? Rogers, they will try. What's going to happen is they're going to raise interest rates some more. Then when things start going really bad, people are going to call and say, you must save me. It's Western civilization. It's going to collapse. And the Feds, who is made up of bureaucrats and politicians, will say, well, we better do something. And they'll try, but it won't work. It'll cause some rallies, but it won't work. Logic. And we are in a situation where Western civilization already seems to be possibly collapsing, even with the market going up all the time. Often when you do have a financial calamity, you get huge turmoil in the political system. What happens to the lit? I moved to Asia. My children speak Mandarin because of what's coming. You're going to see governments fail. You're going to see countries fail this time around. Iceland failed last time. Other countries failed. You're going to see more of that. You're going to see parties disappear. You're going to see institutions that have been around for a long time. Lehman Brothers has been around over 150 years, gone. Not even a memory for most people. You're going to see a lot of hospitals or universities or financial firms. All right, so that was the end of the discussion. That was the whole conversation, and I was able to find it based on the link. And so I know a lot of people may listen to that, they may read it, and they might panic. Oh my God! You know. But to me, what it said was some very significant things. for example, it really lets you know that all of these entities and people that is controlling your actions and activities, they're really just employees of corporations. It doesn't matter what they're calling them. The reason I say that is one of the biggest keys he said was you're going to see government fail. Government is to ensure that the people who it is supposed to be representing are safe and secure. However, the people are obligated to make sure that they do their job. Have they failed? Absolutely. They failed a long time ago. But guess what? The people failed too, because the people are not holding these employees accountable, doing their job. They're not doing what they're obligated to do to ensure their peace, happiness, freedom, protection. So, but the fact that he said government fail, he had then said you're going to see countries fail. Now, if we look at what we have been conditioned to believe a country is, how can a country fail? It referenced Iceland's fail. Iceland is not a country. Iceland is a corporation. Corporations, and you identify the appropriate corporations, you're going to see that they're not talking about land mass. They are absolutely talking about corporations who have stepped so far past, what they ought to be doing, to the point where, and they've taken over the indoctrination of people, so even the people don't even know that these people who are calling themselves governments are not supposed to be dictating your actions. And then they're making a demand of some income, some form of income from you when you don't do what they say. That is in reverse. So, when you, like I said again, when you see these words country, and you see, they even said you're going to see parties disappear. Well, the only parties have disappeared. Because before they were Republicans, they were Whigamores, and I don't even know where Democrats came from. But there is no longer any more Whigamores. And if you go back in history, you'll find that there were other parties that no longer exist. But one thing we can be sure of, if you read that Constitution and you read the history of this land, there was never supposed to be party, plan. A Republican form of government is guaranteed. There is nothing in here that references or sanctions party. So I guess that's also telling you that they got to go because they were never supposed to be. So when we look at this, it's telling you that all of this fact that has been put on the people is getting cut away. All of the things that it is not supposed to be there, it is not necessary, that is just dead weight. They reference hospitals, museums, universities, financial firms. All of that is going to go away because they never were supposed to exist. If we read the American Constitution, it tells you what is authorized. These things were never authorized. Therefore, they must go. So, as a result, people are in the process of being forced to make change. You must go back to the mindset of your foremothers and your forefathers. You must go back operating this land as it used to be operated, a land free for everyone who chooses to come over here, and all who do choose to come over here must agree to live in peace and harmony for the good of each other, the planet, and, the harmony of the universe. If that doesn't happen, all of that's going to get cut away. All of that dead weight, it's got to go. It's no good. And so what we as a people, we have to look around us. We have to look within ourselves first. What are we going to do? Are we going to attempt to continue this enslavement by foreigners? Because right now, you've got people who are doing that. You've got people who are making deals with foreigners thinking that their birthright is a commercial activity when it was never a commercial activity. So if you're gullible enough to think that your birthright is a commercial activity, that means that you're gullible enough to step into these positions of modern Europeans and continue the enslavement of your own family. We all have to check ourselves because there is a change happening right now, and you got to be aware of what part you're playing. If you're playing parts blindly and you're not aware of that, you're going to fall into the pit along with all these other people and entities and fictitious entities at that should have never been here to begin with. You're going to fall into that pit with them as well. So we need to pay attention. We need to check ourselves, and we need to be prepared across the board. Islam, I yield the floor.
Islam. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Oh, all right. I just want to make sure I didn't get my new earpiece in yet. Oh, wow. Well, that's interesting. That's a mindset right there, and the part of it is the observation of that we see of most of the Moors when you mention commercial process, and that's what they're into right now, and they will not be prepared. And then none of that stuff is going to matter too much anyway. And so I guess the question is correct. What will you do? Because I know when you said that, you said, what are we going to do when they leave? I'm like, when they leave, where the heck are they going, right? You know what I mean? But literally you're talking about everything falling as we already know is going to happen. It's happening as we speak. And all of those institutions and so-called governments, things that we think are government when they're no longer existing. It's a very good question to ask because I think that most of the people, as you're saying, they're running on thinking that these things are, real, it has to do with real flesh and blood, natural being stuff, and it doesn't. And the irony is that, on one hand, they claim that they're natural flesh and blood beings, divine beings, etc., like that, and then do things that show that they really don't think that or believe that or know that. So it's a very good question to ask. And the other part is, as you stated, which is more serious, I think, is that even upon being forced to see things and to make changes, if you really believe that these institutions, these corporations are really have anything to really do with your breathing, your living, then a lot of people will be caught in a bad place, and they may take up that scepter of continuing to do what they have seen the modern European do in terms of commerce and corporations and things, fraudulent things and, fictitious things. They may continue to want to do that. Now, that is going to be real serious, very interesting. Islam.
Yeah.
Islam, for certain. I mean, I think more so it's about what we start doing right now that's going to affect what's going to happen when the Europeans leave, however that comes about. because from my understanding, when their banking system based off of monopoly money or monopoly notes crashes, because it's not the first time, right? They had the situation in 2008, then we could go back to the 30s, and then we could go back to the 1800s, and we could go back before that. But it's not really about affecting us. It's affecting them. You know, more so those of us who are dependent on their quote-unquote system for their survival, that's where the effect comes from. And we the most, I don't know, I've seen from what I've seen, you know, I came to the conclusion we're the most creative people on the planet, and that we have many ways to sustain ourselves. Example, this weekend we was at the festival in Philly, a Doom Day, right? And it attracted over 500,000 people, and the majority was all Moors. Hardly any pilgrims out there except the policy enforcers. But it wasn't just that. It was that the streets was lined with vendors, meaning they were handling or making their products available on display for the people at that particular aggregate. And as I'm looking around, I'm like, damn, we are some industrious people. People are doing trade. People are, you know, having good times, eating food, all of these different things within the 15-block area. We're talking all of these people. And I'm telling you, I don't recall seeing one European vendor out there. I really don't recall that. I seen a couple Europeans on the street while we was walking through. But for me, that was a prime example of the fact that, you know, there is many different ways to bring about opportunities. And what was honorable to me about the whole situation is that the sister who put it together, right, she basically just carried on her family tradition based off of a quote-unquote ritual. And I think she said it wasn't no more than like 7 of them when it started off. And they just did a ritual by walking over a bridge or whatnot. I missed that part. We missed that part. But what I'm saying is taking that essence and that energy from her mother's legacy, because she said she did it with her mom or her aunt, and it was just them. And at the time it happened, she was backstrapped in the papoose on her mother's back, the papoose carrier. And she's like, yo, I recalled all of that. She kept the tradition going. So it's more so about what legacies do we have to continue, whereas we won't, you know, flop if the European flops. Like because, I mean, for the most part, most of our people come from families who are dealing with land and have been cheated out of land. We need to definitely get back to that on multiple levels, because that's a resource. The land is a natural resource. It has many resources, whereas you know, it should be no way if we really own it, flop like that. You know, based off of the Europeans failing. Because I remember when the crash hit in 2008, I'm looking in these European quote unquote general managers' faces, and I knew they were sick. I didn't know what was going on, because at that time, you know, I wasn't all into, like, you know, the 401ks and all of that. But when that crash happened, they were sick, and you could see it on their face. And we like, just another day in the neighborhood. We chilling. And it affected them more than it did us. So what I'm saying is that, you know, unless you're tied up and locked up into that way of living, you know, I don't see the major effect. Like, I'm not saying it can't affect people, because all around there's stores closing down that are and businesses closing down where people are out of quote unquote jobs or jobs. But then it's like the creative factor. Where's that at for people? The imagination, bringing things into manifestation. The aspect that man is mind, and if you use your mind or your brain, come up with a lot of different ways to not have to be subjective. But then again, that takes confidence, because I know what majority of the people I ask, specifically being out in the world, when I ask them one specific question, what skills and talents do you have? They say none. There's a lot of people that say none. And that just goes to show that they haven't really looked at themselves to see what they can offer or what they could bring to the world, because they've been programmed with that European schedule. Go to school, 12 years, go to college, get a job, work for me, not realizing that I'm not knocking that, because that got a lot of our people to where they, are right now. I'm not knocking that at all. I'm just saying that different ways to introspect and manifest. So from collective events, open air markets and things like that, with opportunities to exhibit and display what it is you have to offer, whether you're making hand baskets, wool hats, you got grapes for sale, corn, whatever it is that, because even if you say, okay, well, I don't have any skills and talents, you can get creative with a basic plan, plant a seed in the ground, and watch a creative process take place and bring the products to the world. I mean, that's what they're doing, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a brick and mortar to make that happen. There's places where you travel and there's just nothing but land, but on that land, they definitely have a farm stand. You'd be looking at about 20 acres of land in this little farm stand, and people are stopping, getting watermelons and all of these different things, which is resources right off Moor's land. So, I mean, the importance of the land has to be stressed when you're talking about surviving the economic collapse, because look at it. Right now, it's banks in Germany claiming that they own houses on American soil. How is that so? How is that? Germans, Dutch, people across seas are claiming that they got ownership on American soil or Al-Moroccan soil. So, again, it's just back to the tech. And these are big bankers, the quote-unquote big bankers with billions, trillions, and all of that based off of Moor's estate, ancestral estate, the territory, the foundation, which we call Earth, is the primitive, first and foremost thing that we should be looking at. In my perspective, I would love for anybody to add on, but that's foundation. And without understanding all the aspects of where you're at, how that connects to your lineage, it goes back to the syndrome El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz was talking about. What's wrong, Master? We sick? And no, that's not the case. They're sick. So, I'm just saying, we watching it all fall apart. You got FBI, former FBI director James Comey testifying on Trump, Jeff Sessions, Attorney General, is testifying. It's like we watching it fall apart. And this was a prophecy already made. It was already made in the 1900s, early 1900s at that. Noble Drew Ali said the wheels of industry will stop, and when they start up, they will be in the hands of the Asiatics, Moors. All right, so this is a prophecy that's made. So now that we're in it, it's like, the blueprint is already left. It's not surprising. So have we heeded, or if we take honor to the fact that these things were already prophesized, we need to give credit where it's due and look at those blueprints that was left by those visionaries, or seers, prophets from hundreds of years ago that already projected into the future, because, Willie Lynch and them weren't the only ones who could see into the future. It wasn't too much rocket science. They had a plan, and they knew that from that plan there would be an effect, psychological effects over generations. Well, they weren't the only ones that were able to do that. Moors were doing that too. And we're talking, before BC timeline as well. So prophecy. We got to understand the prophecies and understand that they're being fulfilled, they're unfolded. And remedies were already left, and look at those things, I don't think we could get too lost. Because like I said, you know, there were so many people at that one event, you know, all Moors vending for the most part, except for the stores that were just in that area, you know, that had Europeans. But what I'm saying is everybody benefited, you know, from the consumer to the provider. Everybody was definitely benefiting off of that situation. Refreshments were available, people were being compensated, and it was just a good vibe. It was a good energy. It was all love. Nobody was fighting. None of that, you know. People who were creative down from their artistry, just from drawing, you know, that has value. That's a value. People who, well, like, it was just some things I can't even explain, but sisters who were so creative, they had hairstyles you probably never seen before. Just, it was ridiculous out there. It was amazing though. It was a beautiful thing, and definitely keep that going. You know, on a global, international level, in many different places. You know, so I don't know. I don't see them falling as us stressing if we're prepared, as we already knew that these prophecies was going to unfold. And now the European is just catching on. They was hard-headed back then. Like, you know, Moors didn't know what they was talking about, that the prophets, the seers didn't warn them, but they were warned too. They were already warned, and they were hard-headed. They were hard-headed, and here we are today. Their whole thing is falling apart because they didn't stick to the principles or the agreement of upholding that Constitution. Because if that was the case, we wouldn't even be talking about a quote-unquote economic collapse. Why? Because we'd be talking about quote-unquote gold and silver and other natural values. Because remember, the law of the land, the true law of the land, the real money, quote-unquote, is based off of a natural resource, natural resources that they were obligated to. But what did they do? They got arrogant, came up with the monopoly notes, you know, made you idolize that subconsciously by putting their face on it and chasing after a European pilgrim document. And you knew that started changing once they started switching everything digital, that the face didn't even matter. So the quote-unquote banking kind of changed for them, you know, and it's phasing out just like it did before. Because you go back, you know, to earlier times, 1800s, before it was the Federal Reserve note, well, we could even say before it was the Federal Reserve note, they had what you call United States notes and quote-unquote silver dollars and all of this thing. But before that, they had Civil War notes. You know, the 5-note bill looked way different. You got tan, red, a whole different piece of paper than, you know, what it is today. So it's not the first time that this thing has made a shift or a change. And from what I've understood, when that depression hit in the 30s, it didn't really phase nationalized Moors like that. You know, that was the Europeans. This is what I'm saying. We have to understand nationality, that we are not the same. It's not to be arrogant, but we are not the same. And I think it's like chasing a ghost, trying to look for equality with them when it's just it's not the same, you know. So nobility and commoners, nobles and commoners, they're not equal, and that's not arrogance. It's just the fact. It is the fact. So I don't know if we're trying to keep up with the quote-unquote Joneses, as they say. Then
the Joneses are gone. They've left the room.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? The Joneses
have left the building, and that's what's happening. I just like to say, bringing it, like you're saying, with prophecy to an end, and yes, in fact, we were definitely warned of the same. So it was like, well, it'll be in your hands, but like, yeah, the condition of, it's gonna be.
I mean,
wow.
Yeah, because who you telling it? How? Like, I'm just speaking from examples that I've seen. I don't understand how there was, like, how you going to say a family is economically depressed when they have 2-3 gardens plus land all over the place and land in the distance where they're growing things. Where's the depression at? How are they depressed? They have family, all of these things. Moors weren't being affected because you got to remember there's a lot of places that the Europeans, it's going to take a while for them to even try to catch up to colonize. A lot of the land is virgin.
Oh, that's awful. No, they can't colonize Jack no more. It's done.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. So it's like, you know, I don't know. I think it goes back to us understanding, you know, the true history. Like, you know, people got to let go of that slave narrative. Like, whereas, yeah, we were working the land, but that was because it was our land. It wasn't because, you know, the European. I mean, in some cases they had people forced labor, but working the land is an ancient concept to us. Like I was saying, when we went to the Shirley Plantation, and they said that European lady got that through marriage, right? And it's like, well, we already know about the cheating, you know, intricacies that go with the quote-unquote marriage license. But it only was in their European pilgrim family for 11 generations. What if we doubled up and went back 22 generations? Or doubled that up and went back 44 or 88 generations? You know what I mean? That land was still being worked. And it was not possessed by Europeans. That's the bottom line. So, I mean, it is what it is. If we talk about an ancient state of mind of our foremothers and forefathers, like, that's work. That's not, you know what I mean? But it is what it is, you know? It is what it is. So now I yield the floor.
When you're well, you know, if people are looking at like I hear you talking about people coming to a fair or some event and, you know, they're selling that they made or whatever. What I'm more talking about is being able to do day-to-day living. That's what I'm talking about, you know.
Right. Well, let me just make this clear. Everybody that was vending there, that's what they did for a living. They just put it on display and gave everybody an opportunity to see that. So, in fact, that is what they do from day to day. It just was an aggregate.
I don't mean I mean day to day in your home, right? You gotta. People get up. They have to have food stuff. Where are you going to get that from? And the reason I say that is because we as a people, our history has always been to plant something. That was always our history. But at least 2 generations are removed from that. They don't do it at all. But that's how we got our food stuff. What modern Europeans have done is, you know, I remember my dad went to, when he was a young man, he came up to this portion of North America and he worked the land. He said there were orange trees as far as the eye can see. He just went to Florida for the first time in a long time, I think last year. He said there are no orange orchards. They're gone. One food stuff. Now, I know that modern Europeans, they did that intentionally so that we would be dependent on importation for our food stuff. That's why if we live over here, we're sending all the way to California for some apples, or California is sending all the way to Mexico for avocados, or if we don't have the ability to import food stuff, we're not going to have it. We don't maintain that stuff here. So when I say day-to-day living, we have to start thinking about getting back into planting so we have food stuff. Then we have to look at our water. Where do we get our water from? Most cities, they have a processing plant. You might have a processing plant, you might have a well, or you might have some kind of a reservoir or a cistern system. But majority of the population, they use what is called public water, and it's from the their water processing plant. If we don't have people who are going to continue to do that just to keep the water flowing, what are we going to do? I mean, because I already see we got dirty Moors out there who will continue that enslavement of the water alone because they're under that mental enslavement. So when I said, what are we going to do, we winter, one of the prophecies that the prophet made is, he holds to a trust that whenever this thing goes down, it doesn't happen in the winter because that's going to be rough. If it happens in the winter, for the people in the north that need heat, how are we going to heat? We got to start thinking about possibly getting pellet stoves and stuff like that so that we will have heat if the heating system goes down. Because we ain't going to be able to get no oil from Venezuela because we ain't going to be doing no importing. All of that exportation is going to be, it's going to stop the modern Europeans leave. We don't have any relationships with our brothers and sisters outside of this landmass. We don't even have good relationships with our brothers and sisters on this landmass. So what are we going to do? We have to start thinking about these things now. We have to think about it now so we can be prepared. And we're going to have to be more in harmony with each other as brothers because I might have food, you might have heating oil. We're going to have to be able to get together and live so that we can both survive. And we looking at each other and trying, well, she got the food, I got the oil, I'm going to go steal her food. Or he got the oil, I'm going to go steal his oil. That's modern European thinking. But we have to be real with ourselves. We are all under the mental enslavement of modern Europeans to some degree. And it is not when this thing goes down that we want to be finding out just how much.
Right. And it goes back to what Dr. Sebi was saying. When we talk about going back to that ancient state of mind of our foremothers and forefathers, he asked the question in his How to Eat to Live lecture when he was like, how long do we live in quote-unquote Africa without quote-unquote money? The Mayans did it for millions of years. For millions of years, they were not thinking about a European face, on their survival items or their survival accumulations. Like there was no President Jackson to think about. There was no Grant to think about. There was no Franklin to think about. If we talk an ancient state of mind, we come from a family where they have wells, and we're not the only ones. See, that's the thing. It's abandonment, getting back to the land, right? Because, okay, yeah, the waterways have been damaged severely. The water looks ugly up here. However, there's preservations, if you will, digging into the earth for a more pure stream, if you will, as tampered with. So I know for a fact we're not the only family that comes from families who had land or have land, who are now descendants are sitting back like, what are we going to do when you're abandoning your estate? That's the problem. So now everything you need is based right off the land. Everybody like to get fly clothes and all of that, you know, which there's nothing wrong with that, you know what I'm saying? But what if we had the creatives in place to actually, you know, spin the cotton and make the type of garments that we like? We have those type of people within our nation. It's a matter of networking and people stepping up and saying, this is my skill set. Is it of any use to you? You know, this is what I have to offer. Because if they weren't thinking about a Washington, you know, a Hamilton, a Jackson, a Franklin, or a Grant, you know, what were they surviving with? What were they exchanging with? They were bartering. They were doing trade. It was more so trading off opposed to, you know, the other aspects. So if they could do all of these things, build grandioso temples with no Federal Reserve note, no image of a European in mind to do it, what type of mentality did they have to do
that's
that?
Going back. That's going back to the mindset.
That's what I'm saying.
And also, as Ida saying, and as you're saying, you know, if you have the oil and I have, you know, the food or whatever, that is what we used to do. And that semblance of saying is what we experienced at the, let's call it, open market, where people were spending their wares. However, on a more serious note of, I know there's people out there who may know how to dig a well. You're right. I came from a family where we had well water, and it wasn't because we lived
too.
You too, right? Not because we lived royally in a royal rural area, but because that was the way it was. And really, if you think about it, you don't have to go back too far.
That was science.
That's all there was.
That was science.
Exactly.
Down to the science. That's it.
The problem is that's being brought to the table as we look and observe our people is that they are so mental slavery. What is the prophet that I came to picture out of the mental slavery and propping up what has been done commercially and fraudulently, that when these corporations do the same thing, because you can see their minds are not free at all. They're still under mental slavery. You know, they'll be somebody say, oh, yeah, I got water over here, and then, you know, charge 5, 6, 7 times more than what the non-European charge with their trying to, you know, capture it. So this is what we're saying is that that going back to the mindset of the ancient foremothers and forefathers. Some people think, oh, well, you know, they think you got to live. Well, actually, that you have to live in a non-modern way. I guess that's the word that I would use. But that's the
so-called non-modern. So-called non-modern. Really, we're living in a very primitive way. Because if we go back to how we used to live, this is very primitive. This is they say, oh, this is Western civilization. This is Western modern European primitive stuff.
Yeah, it is very primitive. But these are things we got to really start thinking about. Because if we don't start thinking about it, it's like the other prophecy says, well, some of you are going to be sitting there picking skippers off of you and biting into your own. You know, like some people don't know what a skipper is. You know what I'm saying? That's an old term. The maggot.
Think about it. If we had the minds in 711 A.D., quote unquote, we just off of the timetable they give us, we're that's commonly used now, right? You know, we talking from 711 A.D. to here we are, so-called 2017, and we know there's been alterations to the calendars. But if we could do those things that long ago, go into our Andalusia and establish irrigation systems, right? We need to also look at those aspects of how did we do that, as well. Not just the fact that, oh, yeah, we're Moors and we did that. That's beautiful. But how did they do it? And can we do it again? Because if we did it there, I know we can do it here. But it's a matter of mentally connecting back to the land. At the end of the day, that's where it all begins and starts. That's your foundation. You need to know that, stand on that. That's Mother Earth. That's Mother Earth. So, I mean, it just is what it is. That is a creative force. When you're dealing with having to calculate the positions of the sun and the moon, I mean, because look at where it's going right now. We worried about electricity when there's people who are not worried about that because they have quote-unquote solar panels. I mean, they're getting energy straight from the universe, and the bill is ridiculous, and it wouldn't even be a bill if they didn't have a middleman who installed the solar panels. You know what I'm saying? So how do we get back to those sciences where we don't have to worry about that? I mean, the technology or the capability is there. The potential is there. There's many remedies to cut those things, those worries out of the equation. But it takes a different perspective than the one we have now. Whereas
a different mindset, to go back to the mindset.
Exactly. You got places down south and even up here in the north, like so-called Atlantic City. They got a whole, and they're using windmills to generate electricity.
Yes.
They're not worried about the electric company. That's not even on their mind. You feel me? That's not the worst that could happen. So it's like,
wow. Every land had a windmill.
Say that again?
When you had on your own land, everyone always had a windmill.
Yeah, and that's nothing new. That goes back multiple generations to generate electricity. So, I mean, I understand, we have to really understand astrology and the elements, not just, I'm an earth sign, or I'm a fire sign, or whatever. These are great things to know, but there's creative attributes around that. So when you start playing with the elements, or not even playing with the elements, but getting serious about them, that, air is vital enough to have us sustain and breathe and inhale and exhale and all of this thing. But it's a creative force. Electricity could be generated from that. Solar panels, you don't have to worry about the middleman. I'm talking about survival straight from the Most High to your living room. Bottom line, end of story. Your backyard has a well. Now you got your water elements. You know what I mean? So now just off of earth, air, and water, you're surviving. Just off of those elements alone. And then you got the fire, which is the sun and the solar panels. I mean, this is what we need to be looking at for those remedies, honestly. And once we get to that, because it's not new technology, it's just now that certain grid lines are failing and corroding, they have to take it back to the ancient science. Yeah. And it's the best preservation anyway. But look at it. Like if we take quote-unquote Atlantic City, for example, which is a perfect example of a place that has economically already collapsed. Bottom line, people, you take it how you want. That's the fact. From their police departments, fire departments, job industry, 5 casinos out of 11 closed. I mean, we're talking economic blows all over the place. State takeover of the municipality or quasi-national domicile takeover of the municipality. They're moving Moors who was in position out of the way. They're crying about votes not counting when we already told y'all years ago, that your vote does not count. All of these different things. Meanwhile, they're using your resources to run, because with those windmills, they could run the whole section. Nobody would have to pay for electricity. But they still do that. They use those sciences for themselves in their industries. But what did he say? When those industries stop and start back up, they're going to be in the hands of the Asiatics. So we have to open our hands to receive, because with a closed hand, you can't receive anything. You can't receive that, you know. So, I mean, it's simple, but yet the process might be a little complicated because it causes it's a force to make change. It forces you to make change, and we're talking creative forces. So when they're at play and they're making change, there's nothing you can do except for ride the wave. That's all you can do, because, I mean, it is what it is. So I say again, the remedies are there. We have to open our mind up to look at these different things, you know. Yeah.
You there?
Yeah, and it could start with something small, like, you know, just even at your own spot, like, you know, start with a little grapevine. You know what I'm saying? When the fall come around, you know, share them, things like that. You know, just small. If you got grapes and somebody else has the orange tree and somebody else got the apple tree, somebody else has the garden. Because I remember being young, you know, seeing snakes in the garden, family garden, watermelons growing straight out the earth with seeds in them still, blueberry trees, all of these things. And I know for a fact we're not the only Moors who come from that. And all I'm saying is that when we talk about ancestral estates and abandonment, if we're going to reclaim our state, yes, it is the whole continent. But now we got to start looking, you know, at working from the inside and expanding out back to, you know, really reestablish our position in our own ancestral state or empire. Like, that's really what it is. And it's going to take dealing with the sciences. It's going to take cutting out certain aspects of feeling like so connected to these Europeans. I'm just saying that is the honest truth, because they'll get right on TV and call you a nigga. Bill Maher did it the other week. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, and that might seem minute, but I'm just saying that we are not the same. It's just not the same in different aspects. So when we understand that, why that is what it is, I know for myself, it's like a strand of inspiration to understand who I am and where I am and what that means, like in law, in civics, you know, international law, and things like that. So, like it has been said, you know, people's minds, specifically our people, is so far removed from the land, they can't fathom that. Their narrative, they don't have a historical narrative that doesn't include the Europeans as far as it relates here. They'll take you back into Kemet, and I understand that. I get it, and I'm not knocking that. We need to know that. But if you're really going to go back that far, then you got to go back that far and make the connection to this land here that we call the Americas, Morocco. That's just the bottom line, because it was an empire that expanded across the great Atlantic. And before it was even the Atlantic Ocean or that source of water or that source of life, we was already, you know, everywhere. So all I'm saying is, and we wanted for nothing. It wasn't like people was over here dying before the European came because they lacked. No, when the Europeans came, that's when they started lacking even more, because new concepts, new biological interference was introduced through diseases and things like that, that we had no immunity to any of that. So we were, you know, yeah.
That wasn't the subject matter for tonight, so I'm not going to think of what you all about the disease that attacks flying Europeans only. I guess everywhere, but it was specifically talking about the Philadelphia area.
Say that again?
They were talking about the people at Philadelphia with that, but that wasn't the subject matter. We need to do that another time, but it needs to be discussed because I think as part of our force to make changes, a lot of things are coming to the light so that we can stop chasing after things that we ought not be chasing after, and then we'll be able to change our mindset. But I think a lot of it's coming to light. Like you said, there was no problems in that respect until the disease and the certain biological situation was brought into play. Well, and that's another topic, but that needs to be looked into because that automatically leads us into the experiments and all of that. And I think everyone is being forced.
Yeah, but that is significant to the conversation, though. Whereas, you know, thanks, Anna E, for sharing that article. But when we talk about the Moors estate, ancestral estate, we got to understand the fact that it's just so happened that this outbreak of disease that's specifically attacking Europeans only, that's biological. That's the creative forces that I don't know where that came from, but I guess that's the universe giving it back. Because Philadelphia, so-called Philadelphia, is the Moorish capital of North America. Morocco, is it not? Isn't this where the treaties went down at? Isn't this where the Constitution was signed at? All right, this is where agreements or contracts were made. And the fact that they violated those contracts on multiple occasions, it has now come back to bite their descendants. That's just what it is.
Good point there, because you're right. And if you read the Articles of Association, is where they came to asking to the existing Congress, asking for assistance and for them to be free from the British. So you're right. It's bigger, something bigger than all of this. So you're right. That's something to look at for certain. And think about what are you going to do? What are we going to do? How are we going to do it? Islam.
Absolutely, Islam.
All right. So let's see. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take some callers. If you have a question, comment, a concern, something you'd like to play, put on the table, press 1 on your telephone down, and we will begin taking callers. And I guess, let's see, we're waiting for somebody who might have a question, a comment, a concern to press 1. And let's see, while we're waiting, I guess we can continue talking about this topic and other topics.
I don't think this is a question of doom and gloom. You know how we say, oh, well, let's not bring doom and gloom. There's not a question of that. It's a real talk question.
Well, but you're right. It's not gloom and doom. This is more about, are you prepared? You know, because what I see is, you know, many of us, we're just on automatic pilot because, you know, we've been conditioned to feel like, okay, you know, we got everything. But we really, and you know, to a degree, we do. But we have things only because we're either paying for it or somebody is allowing us to have it, which is not how we used to. If we didn't depend, we were independent. We need to start moving back to being independent as opposed to being dependent. We can start doing that right now. Many of us, we have homes, you know, some of us, we got homes, you know, we want our homes to look like these modern Europeans portray their homes. Nothing, no plants, nothing growing, it's not functional, it's just for look. Right? But in these homes, we have a lot of space where we can have plants, vegetation that we can keep growing everywhere. And the great thing about that is if you have green plants growing in your house, that means you've got very good air. 'Cause that's what green plants do. They oxygenate the air. So but the whole when we talk about planting food stuff, immediately people may want to go to this grand scale. I got to get X amount of land, and I got to get, I got to go into negotiation for seeds because I need 1,000 pounds of seeds and all. I need to put in an irrigation system. It ain't not that serious. It don't have to be that big. It can just, you know what I do? Like a 9, I want to say like maybe a 9 by 15 crate, and I just plant stuff in there. Now, and the crate has handles on the side, so I can bring it outside and put it in the sun. I can bring it inside, and that's how you begin. And you can have instead of you having hanging plants, of flowers around the house, have hanging plants of some cilantro, some basil, some tomatoes. That's how you're gonna begin. And that's really easy. Now, as it relates to water, and the filtering of water so that you have drinkable water, drinkable clean water, it is amazingly simple. So we need to research things like that because I remember I was watching a TV show and the people turned on the faucet in their kitchen and brown gunk came out of it. It scared me just watching it. But it made me ask the question, what's going to happen if something like that goes down? What are we going to do? How are we going to get some water? How are we going to bathe? Do you know these things, you don't think about it. You know why? Because we have it right now in abundance. You have to go someplace where, like when my sister lived in St. Thomas, they shut the water off at certain times of the day. You didn't have any water. So you had to learn. The houses had these cisterns attached. I think they're called cisterns. They were, they would capture the water in the air, the dew and the rain, and it would go into these collection things that lined the roof. I think they have a lot of them in the island. And that water would go into a containment area and be purified. That's where they got their bath water. When the water got shut off, they would switch to that type of a system. That's where they got the drinking water. Well, no, they didn't drink that water. They bought bottled water. But if you know how to filter water, you can create your own filtering system, and that'll take care of that. Now you don't have to be going and buying the pure water treatment system or the Brita water treatment system. You can create your own because it's not difficult. But we take that for granted. We don't realize without water, your toilets are not going to flush, but people's got to use the bathroom. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Mm-hmm. We take these little things for granted, but we got to think. What we had to do when I was down there and they would shut off the water, you bathe in a little basin of water. You didn't throw that water outside. That's the water that was used toilet. And you washed your dishes. Now people, I go places. I grew up in a generation where conservation was the thing. Water conservation, electrical conservation, everything was about conservation. So, and part of that was you would get these basins and you would fill the basin with your soap and water, and you washed your dishes in that basin of water. And then you had another basin of water that you rinsed. But today, you see people, they turn on the water is running, 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 running. They haven't washed one dish yet, and there's no basin under there to catch all that water. The water is running, running, running. They're going in the other room. They might use the bathroom, but the water is running. That is huge waste. Huge. You can't go to the islands and do that. And if the water should get turned off and we have to try to do something, you're not going to be prepared. You're not going to be able to survive if you're accustomed to doing that. You know, water is, I mean, you know, there's this movie called Dune. That's one of my favorite sci-fi movies because it's got so many keys in there. But in that movie, they ration water. And water, they call water life. Because if you didn't have no water, very shortly, you may not have life. So they had this huge respect for water. Now, water is a natural substance. We as aboriginal, indigenous, natural people, we should have the proper respect for water, or we don't. As long as we have water, we're good. But we don't have the proper respect for water. We don't understand the science of water. We don't even know how to find water anymore. And then when we do find it, we don't know what to do with it. All of this is a science. We sitting here, we're saying, oh, we're Moors. By definition, by default, if you are a Moor, you are supposed to also be a Moorish scientist. A scientist. You're supposed to be a Moorish scientist, but we don't understand the science at all. You know, we got some people who will dabble with astrology and think, oh, they're very scientific because they know a little bit of science in terms of astrology, but they haven't even used that knowledge of the astrology to fix themselves. And that's not the only science that there is. That is just one of many. We got the science of plants and planting them. We got the science of water and how to have the proper respect for it. And I mean, we did so many, you know, sort of, I hate to use the word rituals, but we did so many things with water in terms of our cells and our energy and our cleansing and finding it and all of this. And let's not even get into electricity, because what we call electricity is aboriginal, indigenous, science electricity, because it's destructive. But we don't have anybody who really is researching that. But we got people running around here talking about they got an engineering degree. If your engineering degree comes from mine, your opinion, you ain't got jack but a piece of paper. Because they don't know engineering. Because if they did, they wouldn't be doing stuff that destroys. They would be doing stuff that preserves and enhance, you know, they're proficient in engineering. Where are they and what are they doing? I mean, it's just so much that we need to be prepared for. And you know what? We haven't even begun. We haven't even begun, really, because we're so comfortable, because we got the toilet that flush. But the toilet is not going to flush in a minute.
Wow.
So what are you going to do? We got ourselves a caller, and don't you know, it's our wonderful, wonderful Bakari. Islam, Brother Bakari.
Islam. Man, greetings to the panel, and I couldn't help myself. I was working on a project, and I was listening to the show, and I was going through so much material work on this project, and every time I get ready to put it up on YouTube, I say, no, I got to add a little bit more. There's so much information. And so I'm already like 2 weeks behind schedule, but one of the things that touched me about the show that I wanted to, speak about briefly, of course, because I know that, time constraints and so on, but
actually, we don't have any time constraints because you're like, everybody must be pondering what I said because you're the only person with a question, comment, or concern right now. So either I blew everybody's mind or nobody wants to contribute. I don't know. Or maybe they're just waiting, because usually everybody raises their hand when we got 30 minutes left to the broadcast.
Well,
you got a whole hour and a half.
Okay.
So you can take your time.
No, I'm not going to use up that much time. No. Speaking is not my. It's not really my forte. I just do this because I'm afraid of what's going to happen to me when I leave this physical body if I don't. But as I mentioned before, I was in the military, and so the thing that I'm going to focus on is security, and I think that the information that I can share without getting into, I'm not going to try to get into details, but I'll just, touch on a couple of things. If in fact that we have a situation in which grids go down, power grids go down, one of the most important things that you're going to need as a community or a small community or a community where you have individuals, let's say best case scenario, where you have individuals who are working in unity and they are working together and they have a plan already in place for such an occurrence, because that is an actual plan that exists with many other nationalities already. And it's not because that they think that the world is going to end. It's just because that grids can go down, but also because of the financial issues that Anna and Eve were speaking on earlier. So what you're going to have is a form of security. You're going to have to have individuals who are prepared to protect the elderly, the young, those who can't fight, and of course women, our most precious resource. Of course, some women are capable of doing, of protecting and so on and so forth, but that's what you're going to have, because if you have resources like food, fuel, propellants, weapons, shelter, and there is no, for an extended period of time, there is no power and there is no infrastructure, or there's nobody that's going to be coming to protect you. Then what you're going to have is a situation where you have to protect yourself. And the first people that you're going to have to protect yourself from are people who look just like you. And within that group of individuals, you're going to have to start focusing on, or you're going to want to, I wouldn't say necessarily focusing on, but you're going to want to be concerned about individuals who have habits, like drug habits. Because if they have a serious drug habit and they're on your security team or they're a part of your community, they will do, generally, if they haven't kicked the habit, they're going to do anything to feed the habit. So they're a liability. And then you're going to have to look at individuals who have serious, ailments, illnesses. And then, of course, Anna E. touched on water. You have to have water because you can go several days without food, but you can't go but a few days without water. And the higher the temperature, the more water you're going to need. The more activity, the more water you're going to need. The more pollutants that are in your food, the more toxins, the more sweeteners, the more chemicals, the more food dyes, the more processed foods, in short, is what I'm trying to say here. The more foods that are filled with saturated fats, trans fats, things of that nature, the more water you're going to need for your body to process the waste out of your body. So these are just some things, that people of various other nationalities are already prepared for, are already and have been working on these things for decades. And it's one of the things that, as a veteran, it upsets me at times that when I have breached this subject, others don't see the importance because, and I don't comprehend why they don't. Within the scriptures, there's information that talks about this. Within the writings of Prophet Noble Drew Ali, oral statements and prophecies, he talks about these things. So why would you not think, if you call yourself a Moor, that you don't have to prepare for this? And I don't, one of the things that I would want to share is that even if I knew or believed that there was some guy in a cape or some god or, some aliens in a spaceship that's going to come down and protect us, or brothers from the east and, whatever, wherever are going to come and help us, I still have a responsibility that if I'm capable, if I have the physical ability, the mental ability to protect, what I have and whom I'm with, lawfully. And so it would be irresponsible for you to sit on your butt and wait for somebody to come do it for you. So anyway, I wanted to just touch on those things because, just quickly before I yield the floor, you could have access to 100 acres of land, and you could have all kinds of fruit trees on it, and you can have all kinds of gadgets, set up for, just such an event, catastrophe. You could be utilizing magnetism and solar energy and have all sorts of little generators set up on your property, that functions totally off of the grid where, you don't need any other assistance. But if you can't protect it, what difference does it make? Somebody else is going to be taking it or making you work for them. And that may sound extreme, but it's just absurd for me, to hear conversations with people and they're not, thinking about this stuff, and especially since I know, based on the environments that I have been in, and the other nationalities of people that I have come in contact with through my time in the military, there are already communities. I already know of communities, literal communities, outside of the municipality and within, where individuals are already doing this, have been stocking up for years. And so, if something does happen and you come up on their property or places where they are located, they're going to be ready for you. You see, they're not going to, because they comprehend, these dynamics of when you have resources and the infrastructure, that the common so-called man and woman don't have anymore because the supermarket is gone, or the supermarket is empty. And he mentioned about the petrol. The tankers are offshore, or they're not even coming anymore, or they're leaking petrol into the water. So and so these individuals are ready to hunt. By far, the vast majority of them are of Caucasians. They've been teaching their children to hunt since they were knee-high to a grasshopper. This is no joke. I mean, I literally know of people who are proficient with bow and arrow, crossbow, handguns, revolvers, semi-automatics, fully, automatic weapons, knives. These are people that are serious about it. And it's not that they're necessarily bad people. Some of these are wonderful people, wonderful people that you would want to know. Not all Europeans are, evil, people, obviously. But the fact remains is that regardless of what our plight has been and how we got to where we are today in terms of lacking resources, not having control over the infrastructure and all of those types of things, as a result of colonization, the fact remains that none of that means anything. If you can't protect what you have, or or at least, even if you don't have as much resources, whether it is something to protect yourself with, or food and water, if you have the knowledge above the neck, or if you have been taking the time to look into the knowledge or look into the information, talk to people like myself and others, you'll be better prepared. And so I just hope that, that there are individuals out there who are thinking about this. And the last thing that I want to talk about here, just quickly, before I yield the floor, is that in order to implement these things, you have to have people in your community who are adults, who are able to recognize what survival means. Okay, people have to be able to recognize if their brother, or their sister, or their mother, or their father, or their daughter, or their son is mentally or spiritually not right, as we like to say. You keeping that individual around is going to cause people to die. That's what the military, that's one of the very many things about combat that I can speak of as a master or as a professional, because I comprehend, because I've been in combat. And I know how one individual can destroy many others. So for communities like this to survive, if the infrastructure goes down, and all of that, power grids, etc. These are things that have to be considered, and and it has to be understood, comprehended, because there is no half-stepping. There is no, leeway. And so I just wanted to, share that with you, and hope that people put it in their pipe and smoke it. Islam, I yield the floor.
Wow, Islam. All right. Thank you so much for that.
Well, I wanted to add on real quick. In conjunction with what Bakari was saying, and I don't know, there might be a lot more information. Something I'm endeavoring to study more is Fidel Castro. Now, I know a lot of people, older than me, may already be aware of, but from my understanding, what I was taught is that he nationalized Cuba, right? And when he did that, he took over those things, those resources like the electric lines, the power grids, everything. Like, he didn't let the European get a foot on any of that. And he had the backing that you was talking about and was funding other Moorish territories, if you will. So I just wanted to say I definitely agree and concur with what you're saying as far as being able to protect it. But the worst thing is having nothing to protect. Now that's insane. And also, being as though we live on the part of the earth that is relatively up there with the most fertile, it's kind of crazy that we don't even know what to do with it. Because when you look at places in the east that have desert land, like on the surface, it looks barren, but they were wise enough to go underneath the surface, and underneath the surface, there's tunnels of water that you can literally walk through, and they have waterways and all of these things underground. So I was just pointing out, I wanted to point out that fact too, that if they could do that in the desert, whereas they can find water underground, and not just that, actually create tunnels and natural pathways to traverse underground, that it has to be a way that we can figure out this map to do the same thing if it doesn't already exist. I know they say in places like so-called Philadelphia, underground is crazy with the waterways and all of these things. But I wanted to point that out, and the fact that I know the water is tampered with now, but you go back to Noble Drew Ali's time frame, Moors had the #1 marine industry in the nation. So-called Camden, New Jersey, Newark, and things like that. These were definitely factories. With the fisheries were just off the chain, and they're all by the waterways. And then there's places on the land that have waterways you would never even imagine because there's so much forest that you don't even see the waterways. But I wanted to make that point, and I just concur with everything you said, So all of these things are necessary and still tie back to the Constitution. So nobody can say that you're talking radical when you're speaking about the crossbows, the automatics. This is all constitutional via the Second Amendment. And that's what I wanted to add on. And peace to what you added on, Bakari.
Islam.
Islam.
All right. Let's see if we have anyone else who would like to add. Oh, well, look at that. All right, so we don't have anyone who has a question. Anyone else with a question, comment, concern? If you'd like to put it on the table, discuss it, press 1 on your telephone dial. Oh, great. Here we go. Caller 312-248. You're live on the air. Please state your appellation and Northwest Mexico.
Yeah, Islam family. Yeah, this is Tahir L. Islam. Yeah, I'm calling from Northwest Mexico, near Mecca, or what people typically call near the quote-unquote Corporation Chicago. But yeah, like I'm typically just listen to the show, but this is really my field right here, just science, just technology. But yeah, it's just a great topic. But everything you was talking about, even on Bakari, Yeah, I'm just catching my breath. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, just something that I was always dealing with anyway. So, but I would say just me personally, but just the fact that all of us had to deal with it. So, I don't even know how to even go about it because it's so much. You know, you have so much info, but you don't want to like just mention it just in a streamlined fashion. So, I guess I yield the floor right now. Okay, so.
All right, it's mom. All right. All right, caller 312-248. If you would like to, please press 1 and it'll take you out of the queue. If there's anyone else who has a comment, question, or concern that they would like to pose, press 1 on your cell phone dial. And
also, just thinking about going back to that ancient state of mind and talking about the elements, right? If you look at certain waterways in North America, specifically on the East Coast, there's different ports that are strategically placed. Europeans just simply took over. Like I was talking about the factories on the shore, on the western shore of what they're calling, quote unquote, Jersey, like Camden, like that being a production hub, which you can look at it today and see decay, right, and correlate that to Moor's economic decay in certain instances, talking about industries, but all up and down what they're calling the Delaware River, that stretch, you could travel shortcut-wise distances in North America because that goes all the way up to the Catskills, meaning that you could be trading up and down that waterway from there to there, and there's different ports along the way. Even on what they call the Delaware River by the Delaware Bridge, they got the DuPont factory and all of that, but what did they do? They just took over Moor's Industries. So what people might see, quote-unquote, as illegal today, such as marijuana and things like that, these were industries that were used for more than just getting high. So many people were planting, marijuana, hemp, and all of these other things, but it had multiple attributes, ropes, medicines, herbs, skincare, cancer treatments, spices for food. There's a whole industry in that, and we're in the quote-unquote 21st century, quote-unquote, even though we don't deal with the European concept of time technically. Looking at where we're at now, something that they was, saying was illegal, which is a product of the earth, just last century is they're now trying to quote-unquote make it acceptable in their Europeanized monopoly society. So it's like the times are changing, like you said, keeping up with the people, the times, and how things are advancing that, certain industries that we already had booming that they took over, outlawed, quote-unquote, or alleged was outlawed or illegal, and benefited off of that for themselves in the shadow industry. And now they're saying, okay, we're going to open up these markets again. Why? Because they're moving into other markets. Because my thing is this, if we're talking about a war and protecting ourselves from Europeans, they're not going to be fighting with you too much longer. They got robots and machines and drones and all of these things. Are you prepared to do that? Are we ready to take technology there as far as protection? Because things are changing. They're not really trying to guerrilla warfare like that no more. Dude, they have their bottom feeders are like the tilapia fish, which the Roman soldiers called police to do that. But on a grander scale, I mean, the reality of it is they're using technology now. They have things, and this is not on no scary anything. Nobody's scared. I'm just saying, if you're talking about resistance or meeting force with force, the technology wave is where they're moving to. So they got personal robots that can serve you in your own house. They got killing machines, drones. You can smack with robots. You can smack with 1,000-pound weight on its side and it won't fall over. This is what you're dealing with now on that level. I'm just letting that be made known too. In the essence of that topic, I didn't want to leave that out because I recall they even have. It was a quote unquote attorney's office that has a robot that pulls up case laws. So they're not even, I mean, we've seen that with the computer when they came with the Google Scholar and all of that. But now they advanced it to the point where they're in the office and they just ask the robot the question, meaning they didn't even need the degree. And this is where it's going. The technology is where it is what it is. And we can say that the technology is nothing new, really, specifically when you look at old things and still can't figure out how it was done, such as the pyramids and things like that. Why is there helicopters there? Why is aerodynamics a major aspect in ancient culture? Not nothing new. It didn't start with, quote-unquote, North Carolina being the first, quote-unquote, state in flight and all of that. That doesn't mean they were the first to fly. They were the first corporation to do something under their quasi-national name, maybe, but outside of that, it was nothing new. And I just wanted to share that message, too. And trust we're here for some more callers. Islam.
All right. All right. Well, we had another caller with a question, but they unmuted. So let's see. Rob, did you have anything you wanted to say? I had to mute you because I think I was getting some background sound from you.
Oh, no, that was, you may have been, but I think they're gone now, right?
Yeah.
All right. Now I'm good. I'm good.
All right. No. All right. Let's see. Our caller 312-248. Did you want to say something again?
Oh no, I'm still on.
All right. All right. Well, once I mute you, press 1 and it'll take you out the queue.
Okay.
Alrighty. So let's go on 11:30, and let's see. We don't have anyone else with a question or a comment. So, wait a minute. Here we go. Here's our call. Caller 786-618. You're live on the air. Please state your appellation and Northwest Mexican.
Yes, peace. Hi. My appellation is Judah Raw L. And I just have a couple quick questions. Number one is I was wondering, why do we call ourselves Asiatic? That's the first question.
Word.
And
okay. You want us to answer the first question first? Let's answer the first question first. I'll speak.
Yes, please.
From what I understand. All right. The whole planet was called Asia at one time, like before the dividing of the land. The whole land was called Asia, Asiatics. Aboriginal people. There were certain Asiatics, right? Or Asiatics is definitely a divine appellation. Keep that in mind too. It's almost equivalent to saying the first on earth or earthlings in a divine aspect. Why do I say that? Because when you look at the 101s of what Noble Drali, the 101s Noble Drali left for Moors, he was saying, what is the modern name for those angels? And the answer was Asiatics, meaning you're talking about angelic life. You're talking about divine and national on this earth plane, understanding the divinity of life. So you're talking divine beings That's why it's called Asiatic. And when you look at the fact that he was saying what was the modern name for those angels, if you look up the word angel in the unabridged dictionary, the etymology of angel just means messenger. So Asiatic or angel, you're talking about messengers. And then he said, what was those angels used for? To spread messages to the four corners of the world. And we're talking before Facebook. We're talking before Twitter. We're talking before YouTube. We're talking before Instagram. So we're talking about actual traveling through the earth to spread this wisdom, this knowledge and light to all four corners of the earth. That's Asiatic. That's angel, meaning we're aboriginal, indigenous to the entire planet. And Europe, so-called Europe, is a part of Asia. Europe is not a continent. So when you're talking about Asiatics, you're talking about Moors from all over the world, and the fact that we're the original people. So it doesn't just relate to quote-unquote yellow chinky-eyed people, because we know that that's not nationality anyway. You know, we know many brown-skinned brothers and sisters who look in Sex and Race Volume 1, 2, and 3, really, but they give you the display of what you might think was an Asiatic actually came from or was aboriginal, indigenous to Central Africa. You know, so, I mean, you got to understand that we were all over, everywhere. And Africa is actually a modern name from Scipio Africanus. So, I mean, when you go back in time, that was one of our original appellations. And it's documented that the word is so old that the etymology is scarce to even come by. It's one of the most ancient recorded appellations of a people on this earth, the word Asia or Asiatic. That's a fact, and it is a fact.
And I just wanted to add something real quick because I know you have a second question also, brother. And so all that being said, if you, I don't know your age or whatever, but many people may remember the terminology of Asian major, Asian minor. Well, that's because, you know, we're in the Asian major now. The whole, as stated, the whole planet was Asia, and from a universal science or universal view, Asia or Asa meaning the lower realm, talking about the earth and all of the earth, not just, you know, any one part of it. As instead, all four corners. So here we are with another teaching thing where we've been taught that Asiatics are those who we think are, you know, Japanese, Chinese, or whatever, and it's just not true. Islam. I know you had a second question.
Islam. That's beautiful. Yes. Well, first and foremost, I very much value you guys answering that question for me because I was really wondering that for a while. I have been studying, but you can't study everything at one time, you know. Mm-hmm. But my next question is, you guys were saying that we need to prep for the future events, right? And I was wondering why more Moors don't adopt the diet of our brother Sebi, because we can't try to build anything and we're sick. Like we have to be out here like in full health with a calm, focused, lucid mind. So like I always see like there's like tons of stuff about law and nationality and this, but we're still eating from the Europeans. We're still eating carrots that are fake, broccoli that is fake, cabbage that is fake. We're still eating hybrid foods that does not complement our genes.
Mm-hmm. And that's part of the law, too, because we're natural people, so we should be doing natural things. So when we say law, that's really a part of it. Whereas we make all seabear trees our fruit, our meat. And that's another thing was, how we speak, we think meat is flesh. And what we're eating, is meat. It's flesh. But yeah, the law portion is definitely the state with the natural food. That's part of the law.
Yeah, and I think, well, first and foremost, you guys are doing an amazing job. So let me just put that out there. But I think as a people, we do need to focus more on what we're eating and what we're putting into our bodies, and not just physical food, but spiritual food as well.
Right.
So we had our friend and brother Sebi who gave his life for this, just to show us what to eat on a earth plane level. So I just feel like we should kind of put that out there more, so that our people can be healthy, stop getting sick. We don't have to be sick. Nothing runs in our family. We don't have sick genes. We're not meant to be sick. We're meant to be healthy and lucid and joyful. So I just want to put that out there.
Wow, that's true. Wow.
You're talking about Dr. Sadie, right?
Dr. Sadie, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to make that clear for the record, because, it sounded like you said SETI, clear on who you're talking about. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Be super clear. You know what I mean?
I
That
am
makes a doctor on this appellation, but I mean, at the beginning and the end of the day, people are in control of themselves. I think the question you're asking goes back to how serious do they take Islam personally. And when I say that, I mean from the acronym I, self-law, and master. Like, so they make these choices to eat what they want. Nobody's sitting around spoon-feeding anybody. This man brought remedies, cured cancer, all of these different things with the Pill's mother and all of this. Went up against the Pilgrims and all of that, you know what I mean? And it's up to the people to take that example for what it is, and
yes.
respect that, because all he was doing was bringing back the ancient science, and he stood on that for whatever it was worth, stood on that. And he had maybe an understanding that some people didn't. Some people are so stuck on the slave narrative, like you can't, you know what I mean? Like they'll justify eating pig intestines and shit, literally, because grandma survived off of that. No, real talk. You feel me? That's their excuse. Well, my grandma ate it for generations, and she lived to 90-something. So people are in different states of mind, but it's like, no disrespect to grandma. She got up to 90, but her ankles were swollen. She couldn't move. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It was it a quality life? And I think that's something that only that being themselves is going to handle. All you could do is provide it, because like we were talking, there's fresh fruits and families that had gardens, but at the same time they had the garden, they had the livestock in the front too. So there was options. You know what I mean? However you wanted it, it was there. So, I mean, and again, it's been said, but it's true that the quote-unquote chickens they were eating, let's say 100 years ago, is not the chicken you're getting from Ruby Tuesdays today. That's something genetically modified. It's not the same, It's just different. You see, they got all of these so-called chicken legs at Popeyes, you know, and the chicken leg or the chicken wing is bigger than your hand. That's not natural.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's something else going on with that. But again, that's for people to choose for themselves. All I can say is, you know, the remedy is there. Nobody's quote unquote perfect, but you gotta learn that and learn what you are, what your body is acceptable to, because you know, you go eating everything from the land, you could also be allergic to things too. You need to figure that out as well. So there's many different things people have to embrace for themselves. You know what I mean? Because nobody's you know, after a certain age, our sisters are not popping their breast out saying, "Here's the breast milk" anymore. That's done and over with. You become responsible for what you intake, and that's on them, man. Like I don't know, you know, but to say on that note is take care of you. And it goes back to the old maxim: what you eat does not make me shit. So you can't worry about that. You feel me? That's your choice. Bottom line.
Right.
You feel me? Bottom line.
Islam, and I agree with that. But what I'm saying is, we should at least put that on the forefront as far as like promoting it. Like, this is the way a being of our status and nature should consume. You know.
Yes. True.
For maximum health. It doesn't have to be like, oh, you eat this right now, you know, but at least we should just try to promo it a little more, you know, because it has helped me wonders. You know, I used to walk around with my nose running and sneezing, and it's not that way anymore. And I feel great. I feel lucid, and I want to share it with everybody. And yeah, it's just great.
Yeah, that's interesting because we understand exactly what you're saying, and we definitely promote that with you. And when you said, oh, you know, I feel great, I don't run around with my nose running and all this. And it's interesting because what you find is that, it's the people's will to do so, and they have excuses not to or whatever like that. And they will never know what you then don't know. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. So thanks for sharing it.
Well, I appreciate you guys very much. Yeah, I didn't mean to get off topic. I've been trying to call in for a while, but I haven't pressed one button. I haven't figured out how to press more until today. All right. So you guys take care, okay?
All righty.
Thank you.
All right. Peace.
And that's your video of health and good eating and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. But you can eat horse to horse, but you sure can't make them drink, there, can you?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
We talk about that quite frequently. Well, we used to talk about it quite frequently, and now we kind of touch on it every so often because we got people like Debbie out there that they already did the work, so there's no reason to duplicate it. Plenty of videos, much information. Just pick a place and jump right in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see if we have anyone else with a question, comment, or a concern. We have no one else with a question, a comment, or a concern, and it is 11:45. So what we're going to do, we're going to conclude this broadcast. We shall see you tomorrow for Moor Heritage and History School. We're at the National Theater. If you're in the area, stop on in. And for more information, if you're not able to stop in, you can call the Blog Talk Radio and listen, or you can all You can listen via the telephone number, or you can listen via the Blog Talk Radio link. So, and once again, there is no Sons of Allah this Thursday. It is next Thursday. That is the 22nd.
On the summer solstice, we're going to bring you that sun heat, that Son of Allah heat. On the summer solstice, which is going to be exciting. Shout out to the brethren Cujo, who's in his travels, visiting his ancestors. More so, I look forward to him sharing his experience. Shout out to him. He sent me a video, but it was no sound. And I'm like, man, I want to ask him a million questions, but I hope and I trust he'll be willing to explain some of his experience through our land, ancestral estate, and the islands and whatnot, among many other things. So we're going to be right back on this natural law topic, and the fact that studying with the eyes, the mind's eye, etc., and the brethren's experience from his travels. You know what I mean? Like that's where we're going to be at more so, and we're not going to disclose all the conversation. It's just going to flow, but more so that's what we're going to be on in other topics as well. So summer solstice, June 22nd, Sons of Allah, 9 o'clock p.m., Thursday. So.
All right. So make sure to check out Sisters Standing on Law this Sunday, the 18th, at 1 p.m. We don't have Sons of Allah this Thursday, but we do have Sisters Standing on Law at 1 o'clock. So we shall see you or hear from you tomorrow for Moor's Heritage and History School. And thank you for listening and participating. Peace and love to everyone.
Wow, peace and love, y'all.
Our problem is lack of knowledge and the intended deceit and trickery done, because even those who read the bibliotext that you call the Bible says he shall fool even the most believe. So even those who think they're highly educated and this and that, they've been fooled. That's it. It's not really complicated.
It's the miseducation of the Negro. Everybody knows it, to those who need to know. It's the miseducation of the Negro. When we rise from the dead, they call us Pharaoh. It's the miseducation of the Negro. Everybody knows it, to those who need to know. It's the miseducation of the Negro. When we rise from the dead, they call us Pharaoh. The gods are back, the Moors are strapped. We waking up, and we want our land back. Running off at the trap, you know them gods don't like that. Waking up from a nap, like where the hell my crown at? Take a step back, like I know this bitch ain't bite back. It's kinda crazy how this karma it strikes back. We enslaved the Slavs, so they slaved us right back. We called them niggas, then they niggered us right back. We brought them to light, but they ain't bring that right back. If I was lazy, dirty dancing with the baby, then just maybe won't revolt like Haiti. I too smart, Lova, Tor, Marcus, Garvey, your ass. Nova, Julia, our leading, God body the man. Now I ain't gotta be bad, and you ain't gotta be mad, but the planet is heating up, so the first I'll be last. I got that melanin, that's better than anything you ever medicine. We at your front door, wonder why you never let us in. Oh, I get it, you never wanted to put some credits in. Well, just forget it, cause I don't know if you can edit sin. We've been enlightened long before Thomas Edison. Skeletons to prove that you wasn't even relevant. In the Caucasus Mountains, cause the sun was your deficit. Captain Caveman with the plan of the Jesuits. Check my bloodline, but in time I bring the evidence. Self-governing body, so I don't need no president. Democrat, Republican, donkey versus elephant. I studied in law, so I ain't down with none of that. I self-law and master, so I'm running that. This Molotov counter burns faster, so I like the match. Despite the fact that ain't even what I'm mad at. I spit the truth, so here's the roof, so you can yeah that. My skin is brown and here's the proof, but you ain't hearing that. Dead in the eyes of the law, that's why they call you black. Naming all caps when you fall, that's why I strike back. And strike that from the record ab initio. You gon' need more than some pressure, I got a vicious flow. I can take the road to the high, or I can hit them low. Try to calcify my third eye, oh you gon' have to go. Chemtrails all over the sky, and you don't wanna know. Doggone inside of my tribe, they coming no more.
If you believe that that your history started on a slave boat, I can guarantee you that's where it ended too. That's what I'm saying. Then, after saying that, and so don't believe me, go back and do some studies past the 1700s, and I'll guarantee you, sure as you're sitting there listening or wherever you are, watching, listening, you will find nothing but the word Moor. And that's another thing. Because we weren't called black. That description, maybe, black or more or whatever, but that's it. Know the difference between a description and an actual, person, place, or thing, noun. I mean, really.
It's the miseducation of the Negro. Everybody knows it to those who need to know. It's the miseducation of the Negro. When we rise from the dead, they call us Pharaoh. It's the miseducation of the Negro. Everybody knows it to those who need to know. It's the miseducation of the Negro. When we rise from the dead, they call us Pharaoh. From the pyramids to the project, the beginning is the part they want you to forget. Implant your memory with that noose around your neck. It's the King Alpha plan and it's set in full effect. The butler, the help, and 12 years a slave. Django and Selma, they get them accolades. They made a movie called Exodus about the gods and kings with an all-white cast from Egypt. Now that's the same. They ain't never seen no movie about no European slaves. We were traveling the seas when they was living in caves. We had to civilize them, show them how to behave. In fact, we brought them light and taught them how to bathe. This is trading places with stolen identity. We agreed to be educated by our own enemy. Reverse psychology, I'ma need a lobotomy. An exorcism just to get this shit about me. Roz Mariah, Anna E, Miss Raheem, Tariq, Cujo from Cannonland. Listen to them speak. How to learn from the best. I don't need no DNA test. The nations in my womb has given from the breast. The empire's back, so you know what's next. The Moors are waking up, now you must confess. Yes, yes. The Moors are waking up, now you must confess.
Birthright theft. The whole deal was, where's my land that, for them, the whole deal was like, this is really quote-unquote promised land. This is really the quote-unquote heart of civilization. This is really what you might call Northwest Africa. And I say that to people so they can stop saying I'm going back to Africa and understand that they're in it. It's the Garden of Eden.
That's what they had in Columbus's journal that they arrived
Absolutely.
in Eden.
So what has happened is absolute lies. That's right. And the land of milk and honey is another terminology. So these things are important because as you're doing studies, and if it says the land of milk and honey, you need to know they're talking about the North American continent. If you don't know that, then you miss it. And that's part of our problem. That part of our problem is the miseducation. We have been lied to, lied to, lied to, lied to, lied to, lied to.
Steinmart's 12-hour sale is a really big deal.
Actually, I'd say it's the biggest deal of the season.
And it's this Saturday from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. with a special preview day Friday.
Right, with hundreds of doorbusters throughout the store and your favorite brands at Steinmart's everyday low prices.
Plus, you can save an extra 50% off all Red Dot Clear